Right, I think most people are joining, have probably joined. There'll be some latecomers as usual, but we'll try and get started. So those of you that have met Amanda and Helena on Zoom before, they're both now. Would you like to be called radar controllers or air traffic controllers, or?
I answer to most things.
Yeah, so either way around, you're the voice on the other end of that radio.
One of the nicer things I've been called. Yeah.
So we could end up speaking to Helena if we're on Luton, Stansted, or Essex radar, of course.
No, I'm Luton and Thames and Special.
Yep, that's it. I was going to say, and then we're flying to London. Sometimes Helena's there, which is lovely to be able to talk to her then. Yeah, absolutely. Amanda, you're.
I'm Essex and Luton.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I can remember if you did anywhere else as well.
Thankfully, no.
I go at Thames. We love it.
I've managed to dodge the Thames and Special bullet for years. That's scary territory.
Fun. It's fun.
It's one word.
For those of us that fly around here and want to just sort of quickly apologise for any of our poor RT, it's a good time to do it right now while we've got them. No, it's all good. Oh, and I just want to quickly mention, I see, what have you got, James? Just before we get started. You got a model there.
One of my birthday presents, Paul, little wooden helicopter. Built it today.
It was strategically placed, so I thought I'd better mention it. I could see he's like.
You're right there. Somebody mention it, please. No, it's quite good. I hope to use it to explain a few things at a later point.
That's a good idea. Yeah. And happy birthday to you the other day, of course.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I stopped aging at 22, so we don't count anymore.
No, that's a good idea. I wouldn't if I were you. So I had a chat with Helena, and she very kindly, and Amanda joined us. And Helena's an RT examiner, so I thought it's a great idea tonight if we go through some of the RT radio oral test and just sort of have a bit of an insight into what's involved and what Helena's looking for when she does the test and all those sorts of things, which is good because we've got a few people coming up soon. Jerry, I don't think you've done yours yet, have you? Sorry, Gerhard.
No, yeah, that's just Zoom. So, but yeah, I'm looking to do it quite soon. So I'm all ears.
Yeah, that's it. So that'd be grand. So, Helena, if that's all right with you, yes,
absolutely.
And it's John. And then I thought we'd use the that sample RT that I emailed to you, if that's all right. We'll go through that.
Absolutely. Did you produce this for the?
No, I can't remember who did. I think it might have been Rod over at Denham.
Okay, because I do have a few issues.
Oh. Oh. Okay. Well, let's.
I mean, I don't know when it was done, but just a few. I mean, I must admit, I've only looked at the first couple of pages, but I thought, no, that there's a better way of saying, that, or more, or something that's been updated subsequently, sort of thing. So there might be a few of those sort of comments, but if you created it, I was going to phrase them, put it nicely. But.
All right, so I'll just chuck the disclaimer out there. The document you're going to see in a minute has got nothing to do with Helena, okay?
Yeah, we'll all absolve ourselves of any responsibility.
That's it, you got it. So
in fact, if it would be quite interesting if anyone sees what I might have issues with before I mention it. So.
Well, let me display that PDF. I was only going to be honest, I was only going to use the route, Helena.
Okay, yeah.
That was all. So we can just sort of kind of go through there and see if people can have a go at doing the calls, etc. Right, let me just get it on screen. I think I'll use the PDF version of it. Map Proactive Route Practice, that's it. Let's take away that. You don't need to see all that.
So what I will say to people is, for the moment, the RT practical will be quite similar to this. You'll be given a route that Paul's going to share with us, and a brief of what how you're going to be expected to fly. In parenthesis, to fly the route in terms of levels. And it's up to you to determine who you're going to speak to, who's the most appropriate person at any given moment. and you generally get sort of 15, 20 minutes having been presented with the documentation to go through it and sort of get yourself set up, prepare a little bulk for yourself or whatever you're going to do. And the way I run it, I don't know what your examiner will do, but I've got 2 linked computers that will run the route, and we use those as a sort of the little aircraft will make its way around the map, and you would be expected to make the appropriate calls as it reaches the particular points.
Brilliant. Sorry, you just asked me to. That's it. Hopefully, they've got that. Yeah. So remember, tonight is just a bit of a sample for everybody, a bit of a guidance on one thing or another. And we ought to stress, of course, doing the RT oral exam, you haven't actually got to fly an aircraft. You can sit down with a pen and paper in front of you. And is it still correct, Helena, that time can pass as quick or as slow as you like, as far as
absolutely, yeah, it's similar. I presume you sort of sent this out to everyone, but similar to the plug you're given. Each leg is timed, but if you're happy with an element, you can just move along to the next. The only proviso being that it shouldn't take the total. If you added up all the times, I think it comes to an hour and a half.
Yes.
And to be honest, there's not that much in it, so we'd probably all have died of boredom by the time we got to an hour. So.
Yeah. Indeed. Ups and downs linked as well.
But yeah, as Paul says, the nice thing is you don't have to worry about flying the aircraft, navigating, all that. It's a good way to practice some of the more unusual or challenging elements of RT without having all the other distractions. And most people find it quite a useful process to go to. There's a couple of emergencies in there, so you get a chance to run through that and hear what the controller side of things would be as well. So like I say, most people actually end up quite enjoying it. It's quite nice to see the change in people from when they walk into the room to when we're finished.
They start with a quivering wreck, wondering what on earth.
That's right. Yeah, there's sort of relief, and hopefully, they've got something out of it as well.
I would feel more comfortable if I could have a sort of a dummy or standing CFI sitting next to me, so I can poke them in the ribs when I don't know. Paul knows what's going on. Whenever I'm sitting in the cockpit and I hear something happening, I'm like, I just bash. It's abuse basically, but for training purposes. So.
We're thinking about putting dividers up into the cockpit to stop this elbow flapping around. Oh, it is funny. It's the radio is. For a lot of people, is a major sticking point. It's a real kind of mountain to climb, and you think honestly you're just talking to a person on the radio, and everybody tends to get stage fright, and honestly just have a go. It's really not that bad, and slowly in time it'll all improve. And that's what we've said before on our Zooms and all those sorts of things when discussing RT. Right, let me start off by sharing that document.
Yeah, with my RT examiner's hat on, we're not looking for perfection at this stage of everyone's sort of flying career, but also we don't want to sort of send you out that you're going to upset every controller you speak to along the way. So there is a sort of a standard to achieve, but if we find little elements that you could tweak and try and get into your routine, then as I say, that's the sort of thing I try and bring out in the debrief from the test.
It's tricky, isn't it? Because during the PPL, the chances are the average student, if you took a generic student, they may have only ever done one zone transit just purely to tick a box. That's it.
Yeah.
Hardly proficient at it. And no matter how much you practice this at home or in the classroom, not quite the same as when you're actually airborne and flying, and the variations that you can come across in, not so much in the process, but just the slight hiccups of there could be somebody else on the radio that butts in, and just various bits and pieces that you're just not prepared for. And when over the years I've tweaked the way I teach RT procedures. I used to use a script a lot, and what I found is that those people that are learning to fly with very good memories will just memorize it as a script, and they wouldn't talk like a person. And the moment the RT went off script, they would just crumble and fall apart. So I build it up in a different way and remind them, look, you're just talking to a person. It's a conversation. Only one person can speak at a time, and there's certain things that can be said, and there's a certain routine to it, but it just bounces backwards and forwards. You have a go, they have a go, you have a go, they have a go, you have a go, and it just, but as a minimum, normally there's, for instance, the pilot makes a call, the air traffic controller replies, and you reply back. So there's usually a minimum of 3, isn't there? 3 sort of way exchanges at that side of it. But you could carry on from there. And I tend to build it like that and remind them it's just a conversation, but you need to listen to what's being said because you're going to have to reply. And then listen.
Absolutely. And even in the Cat 413, there are the standard phrases and the standard words to use. But if they're not working, and this is our briefers ATCOs as well, if that's not working, just use plain language and tell someone what you want. Yeah.
A bit. I'll try not to tell too many stories, but this happened to us literally just the other day. I was with Gerhard and we were flying, fun enough, to Jimmy's farm again, and we wanted to go through Southend's control zone, and we were just going to go from west to east and then sort of up northeast bound, just remaining clear of the ATZ. And they suddenly asked us to turn to a particular VRP. Now, at the time when they said about it, I didn't realise they're asking us to go to a VRP. And there was a moment of sort of thinking, hang on, I'm not entirely sure exactly what they're asking. They want us to go somewhere, but I don't know where it is. And so we just literally jumped on the radar and said, okay, no problem, where is it? And we literally just asked. And they gave us a point to almost turn towards and say, it's just there. Brilliant, thank you. And off we went. And all it was, they had some inbound traffic and they wanted us to go through the approach as quick as possible. That's all it was. Yeah, literally, after many, many years of flying, there was a moment there where I just went and said, plain English, okay, where is it? No problem at all.
Absolutely. I mean, and we'll do the same. I mean, with Heathrow Special, we get people landing at all sorts of weird and wonderful places. And if we're not there's sort of the regular the regular spots, but sometimes people come up with, someone's farm or something like that, and just say to them, what's the range and bearing from where you are? I don't know where that is. So there's a way around it.
Yeah. My first Navex to Duxford, they asked me where I gave my position as where the solar panels are.
Brilliant. Yeah, don't worry, we've all done it. We've all been there. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see my screen that I'm sharing, the PDF. Somebody just say yes if they can see it.
Yeah. Yes, I can see it.
Thank you. And this is just an example. So this is not the one you're necessarily going to be using. It's just an example that we can kind of utilize because it's already drawn out. And as Helene said, you have to imagine you're on a navigational exercise. You're going from, for instance, top right hand of the screen from Cranbourne, and you're going to end up at, now, if I remember rightly, you're going to end up at Yfleet with a diversion to Dunham, I think, isn't it? If I remember off the top of my head. I haven't got
Seems like, yeah.
That's it. And that's the general gist of it. So this route will involve various types of calls. We're going to go through controlled airspace. We've got to give position reports, maybe changes of height because you're going to fly the top of some mountains. There's bound to be a mayday or a PANC or something en route as well that you'll have to practice. We've got to go through this military air traffic zone as well. Maybe requesting a low airspace radar service or a QDM or whatever it is, and then finally end up at maybe a diversion aerodrome that's also in controlled airspace. So it's a real kind of combination of not quite everything we do on the radar, but there's a lot there, isn't there? There's a lot to cover.
Yeah, there's a good sort of span of elements in this, and also in the actual CAA tests, and it's a busy flight, but as I say, the good thing is you don't have to worry about navigating or flying the aircraft. You've just got to concentrate on the RT. With the emergencies, one of them is generally scripted, so you know exactly where that's going to happen, and the other one is for the examiner to provide you with a surprise.
So Helena, we can. I'm happy just to go, not even bother using the script. We'll just go if we're flying at the hall. We'll just.
But I don't know if you want me to have a quick look through it, but if you are going to distribute it to people, there are a few things that need tweaking.
I think we'll find an updated one then. So it's a bit more up to date. I say this might be quite old. Now, one of the questions that often gets asked when we're sending somebody off for an RT oral is, will they understand I fly helicopters? And I sort of, well, in some respects, it doesn't matter. It's the same procedure, but we sometimes do things slightly differently. And of course, if you've learnt at Elstree, the chances are you won't have ever been around one of the taxiways. And of course, here it's information or radio. It's not air traffic control. So we don't request start. We don't request hover taxi clearances or takeoff clearances or anything along those lines of departure clearances. So they're the sort of things that you have to practice beforehand, because you just won't have been that familiar. For those of you that have been on various trips with us, we do go to places sometimes that have got full-blown air traffic control, and therefore you get that experience. But otherwise, it might be the first time you've ever been properly involved in a tower and departure aerodrome, which is what you have to sort of have a little practice of. So let's see, who wants to kick off? Gerhard, because I can see you on my screen. Shall we?
Right, what's the drill? Where are we going from? Cranbourne?
Yeah, and remember, look, that you're not on test or anything, so don't sweat or anything like that. Right. We're going from top. We want to go from the top right-hand corner of the page, so Cranbourne, and let's say we want to end up at Wyerfleet, but there's going to be a diversion because of whatever weather, something along those lines, and we're going to end up at Dunham. But you're not going to do the whole lot. You're just starting at Cranbourne. Now, if it was
is that radio, information, radar, what's Cranbourne?
Well, let's. I
don't have my pulleys on me, so I don't know.
Don't worry. Let's say it's air traffic control. So it's got. So it's got. Should we go full bore on this? There's an ATIS, there's a ground, there's a.
Yeah. So I guess precisely you tune into whatever the ATIS is for that airfield or aerodrome.
Good. Gerhard, just tell us what's an ATIS?
Air Traffic Information Service.
Excellent. And what is that?
It's sort of a scripted. It changes over time, but it's sort of a scripted or automated recording that gives you airfield information, weather. It gives you QNH or QFE, and it gives you like a designator, so information alpha or gamma or golf or whatever. And so that gives you, I've often wondered before we settle from Elstree if we can hear sort of Luton ATIS or one of these other places, just to kind of lighten the workload in the cockpit. So when I get there, I kind of have an idea what the QNH and all these things are going to be. But anyway, the key is that you can get all that information before you depart. And then when you're speaking to the tower, in this case, I don't know, I forget what the sequence would be, but I guess you'd speak to departures first, and then you'd say Cranbourne, I guess, radar or air traffic control. I don't know what the designator is, sorry, but you'll again specify your call sign. You'll say you're with information Papa, for example, and then they know that what information you theoretically have about the conditions et al.
Yeah, that's not a bad sort of. Sorry, Helena, you were going to say something, weren't you, about or?
Yeah, it's ATIS actually stands for Automatic Terminal Information Service.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those things, you get all sorts of varieties. With a larger airport that we're simulating here, it's very likely you're going to have, as Gerhard said, a radar and approach frequency, and radar and approach are looking a little bit away from the airfield. They're not too concerned with actually what's going on around the airfield. Who will be interested are the tower, and at larger airfields rather, that's split into a tower and a ground frequency if it's busy.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
So obviously when we're departing, we're going to want to speak to, unless the ATIS tells us something different, that they're not bothering to to have anyone sit on ground at the moment. But in general, without any advice to the contrary, We would start off with ground because their concern is the taxiways and vehicles and aircraft moving around on the surface, or in helicopters' case, just above the surface of the airfield. The end of their responsibility is usually the holding points of the runway in use for fixed wing. So at some point there, and it will probably be as you're heading out towards the FATO. In the case of a helicopter, you'll be transferred to tower once the ground controller is happy you're not going to hit any vehicles or other aircraft taxiing around.
Now, a very good example is when we go to Le2K, we listen to the automated terminal information service, and like Gerhard said, just recorded loop of information that cuts down the workload of the pilot and the controller, because you can have it all written down beforehand. And it usually says at the end of that recorded loop the first frequency you call on, which might be, like Helene said, it'll be the ground. And for us, often at Le2K, just as an example, we then request rotor start, because they might say no because something is happening. So we start off in that point. I don't know if Le2K do this specifically, because I'm trying to think of other places I've been to when using ATIS and ground, etc. But I've never been asked to remain on the ground frequency while hover taxiing. They've always transferred us to the tower, ready to actually lift, so that we haven't got to try and fiddle with the radio once we're hovering, which that's kind of what went through in my mind, as that seems to make sense for us in a helicopter anyway. This is exactly what something like Le2K does. You make that initial call on the ground frequency, then ready to lift, they then transfer you over to the tower, which happens to be the same person, obviously, on a different frequency. But anyway, so okay. So there we are. We've got the helicopter. We've requested rotor start. They've given us that clearance to start the rotors with a surface wind and temperature, usual temperature and surface wind. We get it up and running. And then in this example, I would say that if we're in Helicopter Echo Hotel is ready to lift. And then, Helena, what often comes next? So I've just said we're ready to lift.
So yeah, I would give you a wind check, even though you have a little bit of wool tied to the front. But so a wind check, and we'd either use the word air taxi or hover, something along those lines, to a position on the airfield to which you're going to be given, and that will be your clearance limit. So that might be taxiing directly out to the FATO or something like that, in which case you can cross any taxiways and things in between, or it might be a holding point where you might have to be honest, we would try to avoid holding helicopters. We'd rather sort of, because you'd have to hover, and it's a lot more difficult than just asking a fixed wing to stop for a minute. So yeah, and you'd be given instructions on where to go next, basically, and a point that you mustn't go beyond.
That's right. It's a clearance limit, isn't there? A
clearance and a clearance limit, in other words.
That's right. I've got to remember that. And so it could be, and I've heard this come up in some of the RTORL exams, and of course when we fly, that we sometimes get asked to go around a taxiway. So you're cleared to air taxi or hover taxi via taxiway Alpha to the Bravo hold. And these are the bits that, say, for somebody that's learned to, if you've learned somewhere that's other than a big airport, you're just not used to hearing this. And as a helicopter pilot, it's like, oh my God, what do I do? It was simple. Just listen to that instruction, reply to it, and then comply with it. So get yourself off the ground and hover taxi around that taxiway. And when you see there's a board with a B on it, stop there. Don't cross the line. That's roughly how it works, isn't it?
That's pretty much the gist of it. And of course, if you are unfamiliar with the airfield, just ask for guidance. Request directions to Bravo, and they'll say, well, hover taxi straight ahead, make a left turn, follow the taxiway round, something like that.
So we're just trying to make sure we cover all bases just to get out of this Cranbourne, in case it's just it could just be like an airfield like Elstree, or in this example, yep, you've listened to your ATIS, you've gone onto the ground frequency. They may have asked you to go straight away onto the tower, or they might change you when you've got to the holding point. But it's all clearances, because it's air traffic control, and that's what everybody needs to understand. On this example, we are requesting to lift. We can't do it on our own.
Yeah, and I think just sort of this is where your pre-flight planning also comes into it. If you are visiting somewhere strange, because there's a lot of information in either the Poolies or the AFE guide as to, you know, particular procedures for different types of aircraft. It will all be set out if there is anything unusual you need to do.
Okay. All right. So let's say we've got to a holding point, and who have we got? James. I can see you on my screen right now. So imagine, James, you're in the hover in an R22 at holding point Bravo, if you like.
Okay.
Ready, and you want to depart, and we're going to use a runway. Why not? We're going to use runway 27.
Okay.
So a bit like Heathrow. So what comes next?
I would say, is it Echo Hotel, Helicopter Echo Hotel, ready to depart runway 27? Or request to depart? Is it ready to depart? Yeah, it's ready to depart, isn't it? Yeah.
Ready for departure.
Yeah.
That's it, ready for departure.
Yeah, cool. So in which case, if you're at the holding point of the runway, if there's nothing happening, you just get Golf Echo Hotel, runway 27, cleared for takeoff, wind 270 at 8 knots.
And this is, yeah, and this sometimes catches, I've been with students before, and they catch them out, they think, but I'm on a taxiway. But yeah, so all they're saying is get yourself out on the runway. When you're ready, off you go. It's not you don't have to instantly take off from that taxiway, cutting across the signs and the grass. No, they're just saying, basically, think about it. What are they saying? They're saying, well, there's nothing coming, so when you're ready, off you go.
Yeah, we would expect you to carry on round it. If we've been using the taxiways to get you out there, you would be expected to follow the taxiway onto the runway as well.
Yes.
And then when you're lined up with the runway direction, that's the time to start your transition.
Now, this is just a quick aside from this, because this is just, it's nice to be able to talk about some of these things with people like Helena and Amanda on board. I've come across it before. A student then hover taxis out onto the runway, then stops and then starts doing checks and spot turns. It's like, whoa, what are you doing? Well, I haven't done my checks, but you told them you were ready for departure. So you should have done that beforehand. So don't forget that, yeah. Make sure if you say you're ready to departure, you are actually ready for departure. Don't then start faffing around on a runway. Yeah.
It's before you say you're ready for departure, would you not say you're at holding point B?
Could do, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. A useful reminder that where you are. So there's really sort of when you do call ready for departure, there's going to be a finite number of things that happen. As we've just said, you're ready to go. It could be I have other traffic coming inbound, so I might say to you, can you accept an immediate departure? So that's giving you the option. What would you do? I'm happy to say anyone, if I said to you, are you ready for an immediate departure?
What are you going to say, Keith?
I'll say, yeah, I'm off. See ya.
And what would you be expected?
No.
What would I expect you to do in that case if you're at holding point Bravo?
Would it be Wilco?
Cleared for immediate takeoff.
Yeah, I'd expect you to enter the runway, line up with the runway direction, and go without stopping.
And go, yeah, and get out of there.
Absolutely.
Now, Helena, what about if we get to the Bravo hold and a student, a candidate says, I'm at the Bravo hold and I'm ready to take off?
Well, we shouldn't really use the taking off words unless we're having the exchange about your takeoff.
Yes.
That's why we're as James said to us earlier, that's why we're using the phrase ready for departure.
Yes.
So at all times before we actually get to the point of leaving, we're going to use departure. So we could request a departure clearance. I'm ready for departure. Here's your departure information. So we're not using the T and the O word until we're actually doing it.
Yeah.
In case someone else mishears and thinks, oh, take off, I'm ready to do that, off I go. So that's the reason we don't use it unless we're actually talking about your takeoff.
And again, this can get mildly confusing if you fly at places that are information, because you hear it all the time that you know, it used to be taught, or we were taught, the golden rule is you don't say the word takeoff until it's been said to you by an air traffic controller. You'd say, as you say, ready for departure. Anything else, but just don't say ready for takeoff until they've given you the clearance to take off. Then it's okay to say it back. But of course, under flight information, we end up announcing that we're taking off, even though we haven't had a clearance, which does cause a mild amount of confusion sometimes. But in this example, air traffic control, wait till it's been said to you without a doubt. So good.
Yeah, I think the only exception is when you're at an air ground, and that's when you're actually generating the words, you know, lining up, taking off. So it doesn't, but again, we're only talking about the situation where you are going now, not during pre-departure maneuvers or any other exchange.
Yeah. Just a quick, somebody just posed a quick question, because it's good, because it applies to Elstree. They're saying, when saying, for instance, Golf Echo Hotel, I know we tend to use the word helicopter instead of the Golf, just to denote that we are a reminder in the helicopter, which can be useful. When saying Golf Echo Hotel ready for departure, if a flight information service officer or ground station replies Golf Echo Hotel take off at your discretion, which of course is not a clearance, it's just they're saying, well, fine, you know, if you want to go, go. Is the correct reply take off at my discretion, or can you just say Roger? Because of course it's not.
It changed fairly recently. We should notify the FISO of our intentions. In fact, on departure, it's always been this way. So the response to take off at your discretion is taking off or holding.
That's right.
So you tell them what you're going to do. So they might say, traffic on a, you know, PA28 on base today, runway 26, take off at your discretion, surface wind is, and you need to tell them what your decision based on that information is. So it's either going to be, yep, I've got enough room, I'm taking off, or no, I'll wait, holding. Keith would obviously go, he'd just be away. So. And the recent change was we also do the same when we're inbound as well now. So the response to land your discretion is now also landing or continuing or going around. They're the only three options I can think of in that situation.
Yeah, good.
But yeah, anything at your discretion, they would want to know what your decision is based on what they've told you.
Yeah, as you say, you state your intention of what you're now going to do based on that information that's been provided to you, isn't it? Cool.
Correct.
Okay. Right. Back to Cranbourne then. So, sorry, Keith. Yeah, he's accepted. He's been given.
Yeah, he's ready for an immediate departure.
Yep. And he
in
said,
which case,
right.
I would.
What was Keith's reply? It was like, yeah, all right then.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah.
Okay. So Keith, what do you reckon you should reply to that? Oh, just press your space bar.
I did, but it didn't work. I would say clear for immediate takeoff on runway 29, whatever it was.
27 and.
27.
Yeah. In response to the question, we would just expect an affirm or negative, and then you would hear the words cleared immediate takeoff runway 27, wind check, and away you go.
Yes, remember if the air traffic controllers are basically asking you, are you ready for an immediate takeoff?
Yeah.
As you rightly say, you could just say affirm, Golf Echo Hotel, and then you'll get your clearance to take off, and that you then reply to.
One bit that we are encouraged to include as examiners is a conditional clearance.
Yes.
So this means that something is going to happen before you can take off, and it's because of the likelihood of a runway incursion if there's a misunderstanding. The phraseology is really picky, and you would be expected to read it back exactly as it is given to you by the controller. So if you called ready for departure, and for argument's sake, let's say we've got someone on final for 27 already, you would be told an instruction to hold position. So we're really trying not to infringe the runway. And then it would be the condition, which will be behind. So something's going to happen first. I would then identify to you the subject of the condition. So behind a landing Airbus A320. And then we get to the clearance and what you're going to be allowed to do, which would be maybe line up runway 27. And then I would repeat the condition behind. So there's sort of 4 or 5 elements to it if you count the whole position, but you would be expected to read back to your examiner pretty much in that format. So it'd be Golf Echo Hotel, hold position behind a landing Boeing 737, 3-mile final, line up runway 27 behind.
Go for it, Keith.
So,
I think he's frozen. Is he? Oh, Keith, can you hear that?
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, do you want to have a go at replying to that then?
Oh, what am I replying to? Sorry.
Oh dear. Sorry, Helena, could you do that call again? You're going to make the air traffic
Certainly.
very grumpy.
Say again, right.
Say again. Mate, readability too.
Perfect, yeah, absolutely. Golf Echo Hotel, hold position behind a landing Boeing 737, line up runway 27 behind.
Holding position, lining up behind 737, behind Golf Echo Hotel.
I would try and get the first behind sort of fail it a bit earlier in your call, because if I hear, you know, lining up, then they're like, oh no, that's not what we're doing. So, so yeah, it's in all the books, but just try and get it in that order of the condition, so behind, and then identifying the subject, your clearance, and a repeat of the condition.
And for somebody that's got, a, you know, in real life, there you are, you're hovering your helicopter, you're battling with the wind, you're at a big airport, you've not been there before, you've got somebody talking to you that sounds very important and knows exactly what they're doing. And it's not easy to then suddenly remember exactly the script. But if you, rather than, for me, it works along the lines of, rather than trying to remember the exact wording, think about what it is we want to do. Well, we're trying to go onto the runway, but there's clearly a plane coming, but they're basically saying in a moment, you'll be able to do that. So they're just prepping you for it. So it's really important we get that message across that we understand we're prepping to go, but we don't go yet. We don't enter that runway. And that's where that behind and behind comes from, isn't it, Helene? Like you say.
Yeah, that's why they repeat it at the,
you
beginning
get it
and the end to really stress that. Because for the towers, runway incursions are sort of a big hot topic.
Yeah.
You know, that's sort of where most of their sort of incidents will or have been known to occur. So the phraseology is designed to try and minimise the likelihood that it will be misinterpreted and contribute to an incident.
So we need to, as pilots, we need to get that out nice and early on to reassure that poor person up the tower that you're not about to go straight on the 737. So
you know, you have people who read back things like lining up, and obviously the first thing I've heard is no, and I'm wanting to get onto the radar and say negative, not now. So, and they might put the behind at the end of the call, but you've sort of increased my pulse rate by a couple, and so that's.
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah, and there's various. I mean, I've got people asking a few questions on this, and of course, all this is really valuable stuff. That what we've said, or what Helena said, and what we've replied with, that simple read back of understanding that we're now not about to go on the runway, so we're just literally reading back behind, and maybe we've forgotten what type of aircraft it is. Behind the landing aircraft, line up on runway 27 behind. You know, we're just trying.
And it will be the next one to land. We don't do sort of the thing behind the number 3. You know, it will be the next one that's going to pass in front of you. So.
And this, in the early days, that used to worry me, thinking, I don't know what 737 looks like when it's coming into land. It's like, no, it is the next one.
It is the next. I learned to fly fixed wing in the States, and you'd get things like clear to land number 4, and you're like, oh, well, where's everyone else?
Slightly stressful, yeah. You can't see all the other ones. Now, what about, do we, Helena or Amanda, do we need to acknowledge that we've seen that aircraft? Is that helpful, or it just doesn't matter? If we said that we're visual.
No, I don't think it requires a traffic insight call.
No.
Just that you know what you're looking for.
What
I'm
about
just trying to remember. Sorry.
what about if we did say that? Is that a black mark against us in the RT exam?
No, yeah, not at all.
Yeah, good. And
Quite reassuring.
and hopefully this is answered Richard's question. He's asked, somebody's asking, is the order of the readback as important as the content?
In that particular case, and like I say, in the RT exam, they would be kind of expecting, well, I certainly would. It's a bit like the emergencies. You're not really under that much. There's a little bit of stress, but you know, you're not under the pressure of having to fly and navigate and everything else. So we probably are expecting sort of things like that you can prep, like the emergency call, like the conditional clearances, to be pretty spot on because they're quite important bits of RT. In the real world, you'll probably get a bit more, you know, latitude, shall we say, that as long as the main elements are in there and you don't sort of give the control apoplexy, then you'll probably be okay.
Yeah, and there's just, of course, it is the, as you say, the readback, the content. Of course, it is really important because we're trying to prevent an accident, aren't we? Runway incursion. So
in that instance, yeah. You know, that there are, and also, like I say, there are certain bits that you can, certainly in the context of the RT exam, you can prep for, like the emergencies. We can just sort of tumble that out, you know, force landing wherever I am. But the CAA have asked the examiners to, because it's an unusual piece of phraseology and hopefully, touch wood, something that, you know, you may never have to say in real life again, you know, so that they do ask us to be quite particular about the emergencies and sort of anything that might be safety critical.
Okay, cool. All right, so we're with a bit of luck with where are we, Keith? Oh yeah, we've done a read back. So the 737's landed, brilliant, and then
you can pop out onto the runway. And what would you do then?
I can't see anybody else. Who wants to say next? So we've now hover taxied onto the runway because the 737's landed and we've given it plenty of distance for wake vortex, etc. What's next?
Would you actually call saying lining up now?
Yeah, that's a good option. Or we would just sort of, you know, taxi on or hover taxi on and just line up in the direction of takeoff. You won't be allowed to use the runway until that 737 is vacated, basically. So you may find you're sort of having to hold for a little while where they get row 48 sort of onto the taxiway, and all of the aircraft has vacated the runway, and then hopefully the controller will come back to you at that point and say, Golf Echo Hotel, runway 27 cleared for takeoff, wind 260 at 7.
And Keith, you reply?
I would say clear for takeoff, runway 27. Golf Hotel Echo.
I like the at the beginning.
Yeah, good. So you've read back the clearance and of course the runway, just to reaffirm you are going to be using that runway, aren't you?
Yeah.
And
they seem baby, because I don't do Tower anymore. I did Luton many years ago, and they do seem to be saying the runway direction a lot more than I used to. So that's sort of something that's sort of, there's obviously been some sort of confusion, and they're now restating it almost to death, really, I think.
Yeah, they say it all the time. Literally, they keep reaffirming the runway in use and the runway direction. Cool. Now, for some of you, we think, God, crikey, you know, we've been talking for the best part of over half an hour. We haven't even got out.
Everybody just left.
But we're sort of trying to cover all bases. But you could get all of that lot as an example. That's the sort of thing you could be faced with, and you're just not used to it. So, of course, practice. You know, you have some time with your instructor and or with the RT examiners, etc., etc. But yes, you know, if you've learned at a big airfield, it's quite normal routine. But if you've not, this is all quite daunting.
Right, exactly that. When I was still based at Luton, I used to instruct for Britannia's Flying Club out of Luton, and at the same time I was instructing at Falmere, a little grass strip as well. So, and it was quite interesting to see how the students at Luton, they were obviously maxed out with RT from sort of day one, whereas the guys at Falmere's little grass strip, just air ground, and it was quite fun to sort of, you know, swap them over. Just But it's something, you know, that the more you use it and the more you're exposed to it, the easier it becomes. I mean, Amanda and I are lucky. People pay us just to sit and talk on the radio all day, don't they?
Brilliant. Paid to talk, yeah.
Well, I learned at Cranfield, which is an air traffic control zone, and then I went to Elstree and I found it quite a jump.
I really do.
That you could actually do things without requesting it.
Yes, yeah, a little bit more freedom, I suppose. With
Dream of that. We don't go to
Okay, so we've taken off, we've departed Cranbourne, and who wants to tell me what's next on this route? It looks like there's a visual reporting point, and we've got this here, Loxted. What's all that about? Come on, somebody be brave enough and tell me.
It's an airfield.
It is, John. And what about it? Is there something about it? We clearly want to fly there, or through there, or past there. So what do we need to do? What about this?
Need to contact them. Need to contact them and say that you want to. I can't remember the terminology. What it'll be to fly over.
Zone transit.
Zone transit.
Yeah, something like a zone transit, because we want to transit.
Class D airspace.
Yeah, absolutely.
3,500 feet.
So now this is classic Luton territory, isn't it, or Stansted territory? Absolutely. Class D zone.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So we've changed frequency. We've gone to Loxted 127.400. And who's going to make that first call? Who's brave enough to try and do a first call for me to Loxted?
Well, I would propose you speak to Cranbourne again and request frequency change to Loxted first.
Hey, well done.
Before you just do that, Paul.
Good. So yes, we need to request a frequency change, rather than just tell them that we're leaving, because
they own us while we're in the
yeah. Remember, Cranbourne, we're saying in this example that Cranbourne is air traffic control. So we can't just tell them we're going to leave frequency. We have to ask them, can we leave? So we request. Whereas when we fly out of Elstree, we politely say to them, we are now going to change. There's no request frequency change at Elstree because it's information.
So it'll be Golf Echo Hotel requesting frequency change to Loxted 127.400.
Yeah.
At which stage they'll go, yep, go away, thank you very much, score conspicuity, and have a good day, and use just affirm, cheers, bye.
Excellent.
And then you can switch.
Good. All right, go on, I'll carry on then. So you've switched. You're on to Loxted. What's your opening gambit with them?
Who are they? Loxted radar information? Are they radar? I don't know. I would know all this stuff before I leave. Just to be clear. Okay, so Loxted radar.
Good. Yeah.
So Loxted radar, golf. Well, what is it? Golf.
You can use this one, Gerhard.
Okay. So Loxted radar, Golf Hotel India Zulu request basic service and zone transit.
That was lovely.
And they'll come back with. They'll hopefully come back. I always operate better if they give me the squawk immediately, because then I can just get that off. But maybe they'll say Golf Hotel India Zulu pass your message. At which stage we could say Golf Hotel India Zulu. Yeah.
Now, hang on 1 second. So we'll let Helena reply to you, because she is.
Okay. Sorry. I'm doing everyone's job.
You're doing it all the parts. Where's my phone? How will I get an
Just myself that day.
So Gerhard has been very, very good, and he's done what sort of service he would like first of all outside.
Absolutely.
Which is
that was nice. In that initial call, what I really liked is that you asked for a basic service and a zone transit. That saves us a whole conversation down the road. So that was really good. And you're quite correct. I would probably then go on and say Golf Hotel India Zulu Loxted radar. Pass your message.
Go for it,
Golf
Gail.
Hotel, Golf Hotel India Zulu Zulu is a R22 2 POB on a navigation exercise from Cranbourne to Dunham, presumably.
Whitefleet.
Well, why are we going to Whitefleet? Okay, Whitefleet via what is that? VRP Croxley, Cross, and Dunford. We are at 2,000 feet on QNH 1029er, requesting basic service and zone transit. Golf Hotel India Zulu Zulu.
Golf Zulu Zulu, Roger, squawk 4670, Loxted QNH 1022.
Squawk 4670, Loxted QNH 1022. Golf Hotel India Zulu Zulu, or Golf Zulu Zulu. I always mess that up.
I sign off his RT test when we've done this, by the way. Because this is kind of how it works without the video, but okay. Golf Zulu Zulu identified 8 miles to the east of Loxted, basic service.
Golf Zulu Zulu basic service. Would I also repeat where I'm identified?
No, not really.
I usually don't Golf Zulu Zulu basic service. But we haven't discussed our zone transit yet.
No,
exactly.
you haven't.
Brilliant.
Golf Zulu Zulu requesting zone transit.
Golf Hotel India Zulu Zulu transit the Loxted zone. VFR, not above altitude, 2,000 feet, route Croxley Cross, direct Dunford.
VFR not more than 2,000 feet via Crossley Cross and Dunford. Golf Hotel Zulu Zulu confirm zone entry. Oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry, I didn't hear that I've actually been cleared to enter your zone yet. I've just passed all of that through.
Oh, I thought I said, did I not say clear to transit? And actually, that's a question a lot of people come up with. Clear to transit, clear to cross, clear to enter.
Clear to enter zone, I guess, is
means
what I'm
the same
expecting
thing.
to hear. But yeah, it's one of those things that you, okay, fair enough. So I just say clear to transit, Golf Zulu Zulu.
Cool. Yeah,
And then as you,
that's not too bad, is it? Something we do come a lot. I mean, we're not trying to tidy up everybody's RT in this session and all the rest of it. But I've heard there seems to be a growing trend, right or wrong, with adding the call sign at the beginning and on the end of the call, and it's not necessary, is it, to add it on the end, for instance, if you've done it at the beginning.
It's kind of tricky because all the literature that I was studying says that you're supposed to kind of do that. And I think you mentioned something, Paul, in the Capt 413. The way we talk over the radio now is not aligned with that at all, because you do a call, wait for a call, then a call, and a call, and now everything's kind of sort of concatenated into one. But yeah, I mean, if you're saying don't say it at the end, I think that initial call always feels right to do it in the beginning, say all the bits that you want, and then say it at the end just to make sure, and then maybe not say it again.
For you guys, it's nice and easy for us on the ground. We just put it at the beginning, regardless.
Yeah.
In the air, if you're telling me something new, you put it at the beginning. If you're replying to a clearance or anything else, you put it at the end, because what I'm listening for, if I've told you the new QNH 1022, so Golf Zulu Zulu, new QNH 1022, I would expect to hear 1022, so I'm checking the information is right. Golf Zulu Zulu, the right person has got it.
Right on.
Whereas if you're telling me something new, bear in mind, Amanda and I can have a whole bay full of strips. So you're alerting me to who is this about? So, and then I'm looking down, so Golf Zulu Zulu, and while you're talking, I'm, finding the flight progress strip that represents your flight. And then by the time I found that, you're telling me what you want. You see, so that's the reason it's if you're initiating new information, put it at the beginning. If you're reading back something or replying, put it at the end.
Roger that. Okay.
In an ideal world, no one's going to get totally upset if you do.
But you don't need to do it twice in the same call.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cool.
One or the other.
It's either at the beginning or at the end.
It's fine.
That's it. And
if we miss who it is, we'll just say station calling. Who was that?
Yeah, good, spot on. it's only a minor thing. I don't know how important it is. Of course, the route would, in this example, it looks like it's overhead or through the ATZ.
Very odd zone. I'm not quite sure why, because generally you put an airport in the middle of the zone.
Yeah, I know. It's a bit of a weird one, isn't it? Yeah. So
because people landing on the sort of the north-south runway are not going to get very much controlled airspace.
They've got a tough job there, haven't they?
Whereas everyone from the other end is
fine. Okay, no problem.
So it's a good one. We are being encouraged as controllers to use VRPs as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
To the extent I'm sure you've all seen the new map of the London zone. VRPs bloody everywhere now.
Yeah.
And so I'm still trying to learn where they are. I mean, so I can't remember how many new ones were there. 10.
Oh my God, there's loads.
Maybe,
loads. Yeah.
Yeah. So and again, half of them begin with B, which is really, doesn't help my route to Burnham. Yeah. So bear that in mind when you're sort of planning your nav exercises in the real world away from this, that controllers are being encouraged to use any VRPs a lot more than we used to.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
All right, so so on the basics, sounds like Gerhard's managed to get a zone transit or clearance. He's in. Cool.
So the next thing I would do once you get to Croxley Cross, which isn't easy to say, that's the other thing, is I would change the service. So outside controlled airspace, we've agreed you're on a basic service. What would you expect to have inside?
Radar.
Yeah, radar control. So as you cross the zone boundary, I would say Golf Zulu Zulu, entering the Lockstead zone, radar control service.
Radar control, Golf Zulu Zulu.
And does anyone want to hazard a guess at to what you've just agreed to? So what does a radar control service entail?
Who wants to have a go at guessing that?
What does it mean, radar control service?
Must be that you've got to comply with everything that you say.
Absolutely. So it means that you are going to comply with the clearance that we've agreed, that you're going to fly VFR not above 2,000 feet from Croxley Cross to Dunford in this case. And you're not going to deviate from that without checking with the controller first. That's basically what you've signed up for. So if you encountered a cloud halfway along, you thought, oh, I need to turn south, what would you do?
You'd have to report that to yourself.
Request permission.
Yes, whoever said that, Tony. Yeah, you need to do something.
How would you phrase that, Tony?
Lockstead Tower, VFR, student pilot, request direction change due to cloud formation, and then the call sign.
Cool. Yeah, that's kind of, yeah, I would completely understand that. If I were flying it, I would say request a turn to the south to avoid weather. And as soon as you say weather to an air traffic controller, like, oh, okay. You get it. It might be, for argument's sake, say my arrivals were coming in from the south there. It might be that a turn to the south isn't going to work for traffic reasons. So we might have to negotiate a bit. I might say, traffic to the south of you, can you accept a heading of 330 degrees? Would that work for you? And you can either say yay or nay. If it's no, I might say, well, you're going to have to hold there until the 737's out of the way. But hopefully we would come to some other mutually agreeable solution.
Would you also or potentially suggest a reduction in altitude?
No, I've given you, there's the reason with VFR traffic that we always issue a not above level. So I can be happy that you're not going to exceed that. If you need to bob down to get under a bit of cloud, you can. But also I can bring my IFR traffic sort of 1,000 feet above you and know that I'm not going to lose separation because you've promised you're not going to exceed 2,000 feet.
Got it. Okay.
So yeah, that's the reason we give a not above, so that you've got some leeway if you need to descend a couple of 100 feet to get under a bit of cloud or something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. All right, so we've made it through, thank God. We've got to Dunford VIP.
And can anyone guess what I'm going to do when you get to Dunford?
I can.
Go on, Amanda.
You can't play.
Change the service. Change the service from radar.
Absolutely. And so it'll be something like Golf Zulu Zulu, leaving the Lockstead zone, basic service.
And John, you would say?
Basic service Golf Echo Hotel.
That's it, or whatever the call sign is, yeah.
Whatever we're using, yeah, I don't know. Excellent. So that's great. We negotiated that nicely, I think.
Now, if we had requested initially a traffic service outside, and you were happy enough to give that to us because we're high enough, yada yada, and all the rest of it, and we've popped out the other side, and we're just at 1,500 feet, and we've realised we've got some hills we need to fly over, which are, well, the tops of them are 1,503 feet. We need to climb, but we're on your traffic service at the moment. Should we just go up?
Yeah, if you're outside controlled airspace, if you're on a basic or traffic service and you haven't been told to maintain, because where to start? With a basic service, we could enter into an agreement that you're going to follow a particular course of action, but you have absolutely the right to refuse it. So I could ask you, can you maintain, it's normally Farnborough who are special to impose these. So you would hear something like, for coordination, are you able to maintain not above 1,500 feet outside the zone? And obviously that's putting you straight towards the mountain. So I would absolutely expect you to say negative for terrain. You know, it's nice to know a reason. And I would go back to Farnborough and say, no, they won't do that. We can use a traffic service to vector traffic, in which case we will be giving headings and levels. This is what we do if you listen to Thames, we do that into Biggin Hill all the time. But if you're not being vectored on traffic service, you have complete autonomy to fly whatever level heading, unless we've agreed something, you can do what you like outside controlled airspace.
Would it be a good idea, though, if we're going to climb to go to the top of these mountains, just to let you know what our intentions are?
Can do, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We probably just go, okay.
Good. All right. So we've got a turning point at Burp.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm giving you a traffic service and and you do let me know and I see there's something up there, then that could become traffic, because I'm considering what I consider to be or what, not just me, it's not a personal thing, but what we consider to be pertinent traffic is if it's going to come within 3 miles or 3,000 feet of you. So if you change level, that could trigger, right, now that is traffic to you above. So yeah, it's worth letting us know.
Cool.
But we wouldn't get upset if you didn't, let's put it that way. It's,
all right, and I think for the purposes, we'll just stay on Lockstead for a moment, and we go past Burp and we make a turn, and we're thinking about changing frequency, because then eventually we're going to need to go through the Norton Mats. But quite often, if you see something like a reservoir on the map, it's not just drawn there for fun. There could be, and we've seen this crop up, haven't we? Now I'm sure you do this, Helena, that you might, as you fly past it, you notice that there's a boat and it's capsized in the water, and there appears to be people sort of flapping around in the water and thrashing around. So does anybody want to have a go at what we should perhaps do? Do we just sort of take photos and put them on social media?
Instagram them, yeah.
Do we Instagram them straight away? Do we have a good old laugh, or do we go and try and
they're cold, yeah.
we go and hover down there and see if they'll grab hold of the skids and rescue them? What should we do?
Well, the guy reporting it, surely.
So say again, John?
I said we'll have a go at reporting it, surely.
Yeah, all right, good. Do you want to have a go at doing that then? You wish you hadn't spoken now, didn't you?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Always in the frame. Golf Echo Hotel message.
Are you? Would you give it any higher priority than just, hey, I've got something to tell you?
Paul said it was a capsized boat. It was nothing to do with an aircraft. So as far as I'm concerned, we're just going to second class.
All right, so there's
They're
people.
debating people.
Is
Come
it-
there.
John, there's
It's the
definitely,
pan call, right?
there's
Okay,
definitely
pan.
Yeah.
Sorry,
A pan call doesn't necessarily have to be about you.
yes.
So, yeah, it can be your
Okay, so,
concern for the safety of your aircraft, or some other person on board or within sight, and that's the bit that gets our people in the water.
Yeah.
We can see something that may be a hazard to life.
Helena, why not Mayday, Mayday, Mayday?
Because Mayday is more to do with you,
Yeah.
and your aircraft. There is something happening. You are faced with grave and/or imminent danger, and you require immediate assistance.
Good, that's it. So that's why this makes this a pan call, not a Mayday, even though there appears to be people in the water and possibly drowning. Well, we can't tell from up at 2,500 feet, but we can definitely see a capsized boat. So hence the pan call.
Yeah, and the pan call, the definition of a pan call is your concern for the safety of your aircraft or somebody on board, so sick passenger, or within sight, people splashing about.
Brilliant. So John, what are you going to say then?
Pan. On southeast of Northwich Reservoir, can see down below some people with soft heads seem to be splashing around. They look like they need assistance.
That's not bad, is it?
Yeah, I know where there's a problem. I sort of know what's wrong with them.
Got soft heads.
They've got soft heads. Yeah, so there is obviously the standard format for a pan and a Mayday call. However, time and circumstances may dictate that it's not always possible to run through the list. On your RT practical, you would be expected to, do it properly. But the important things are the who, what, where, and we can put how many. So regardless as to, whether it's about you or about someone else, who you are, what's gone wrong, be it with you or the wet heads. If it's you, where, in either case, where is this problem? And if it's you, how many persons have you got on board? Would be the real important thing. As controllers, we're kind of we're not meant to start quizzing people. If Amanda will correct me if I'm wrong, but if a pilot's got a problem, we're gathering the information to pass it along to the emergency services. They're always going to want to know where they've got to go, how many people are they looking for, and what are they looking for when they get there, sort of thing. We don't want to start pestering pilots saying, where were you? How many people was it? We want to leave you alone, particularly if it's a problem with your aircraft, leave you alone to deal with that issue while we sort of pass things down the line to the emergency services and D&D and get the balls rolling to people to come and help you.
We're already sort of taught to sit on your hands. When someone declares something, we want to start asking questions. Time expands for us, but for the person in the emergency, it condenses. So we have to take a step back, let you sort out the problem, and when you're ready, they'll come back to us. Because we want to ask questions, but you think, no, you just need to give them time.
Good. All right, John. So you've got the general gist that you've done a pan call and you've told Helena in this instance, or Lots did radar, that you've seen some people in distress in the water. What should we do? Should we just carry on and leave them now?
This is Helicopter Hotel. I've got a winch on board. I think I can probably handle this situation. Like this to,
Yeah, okay. So the kind of one of the next things is, do we carry on our NavX, or do we stay there, or what do we do?
I think
I would stay there. If we had the fuel, I would probably stay circle and try and help or assist with as information as Amanda said.
Yeah, and that's the
Yeah,
general.
you've kind of got involved now.
And the classic is, I think you stay there until you can see the emergency services or the air traffic controller can notify you. The emergency services are now on scene. Thank you for your help, etc., etc.
Or before you run out of fuel and you become the emergency.
Yeah, exactly.
You become another emergency, yeah.
Right.
But yes, so, you know, like I say, I use catnip for emergency calls because it's a silly word and it helps to keep things in the right order. So the attention getting words, so always start off with your mayday, 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 or pan, 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 once you decide how deep the poo is and or whether it's your poo or nobody's, anyway. And then it's the station you're calling, who you are, your aircraft, call sign and type, the nature of the emergency, the intentions of the pilot in command, PAN, Papa Alpha November. Sorry, the question popped up at the bottom. The intentions, your position, and that's not just geographically where you are, but also should include your altitude and heading. So the idea being, if that's the last we hear from you, we know where you were, what direction you were going, and roughly how long you had to glide. And so we've sort of narrowed down the search area. The only bit of the information that's actually for air traffic, it's catnip with a few extra P's on the end, by the way, is your pilot qualifications, just so that basically we don't do anything that's going to make the situation worse. We don't give you an instruction that's going to exceed what you're able to do. And we would expect to hear something like student pilot, PPL, IRR, or full instrument rating. So just an indication of your experience. And the last P is the persons on board and anything else that's useful. So it might be fuel endurance. If you're lost, obviously the endurance matters. If your engine has stopped, then it doesn't really matter how much fuel you've got, you can't use it. So you could add anything else that's going to be of use to the situation.
Now in this, somewhere along this route as well, there's usually something along the lines of maybe a rough running engine, isn't there, as well?
Yes, I think there's, like I say, there's usually one that's scripted. And I noticed whoever did this has done, yes, at some stage during the flight, you've been made aware of an emergency situation that may involve you or another aircraft, it says.
Yeah.
And then later on, it says, during the flight, the emergency light will flash twice. And is accompanied by a klaxon noise. And this will indicate a rough running engine. So one is kind of, to expect one. And I don't know about other RT examiners, but I'm not particularly imaginative. But so if the scripted one's a pan, you can expect the other one to be a mayday.
So
there we go.
So John and or Helena, we're flying along. So with that pan call, that's been dealt with.
How would you end? Yeah.
Yes.
Say they've all swum to shore. How would you end this whole sort of procedure that you've set in motion with the pan call and D&D are coming and so they've all swum to shore.
Gulf Foxtrot Papa Hotel, I've got a visual on Northridge Reservoir. They've all swum to shore now and they seem to be okay. I'm going to continue on my journey.
Okay. Yep, I would completely understand that. There is a standard phrase that we can throw in there, which would be cancel pan. They're all swum to shore, or something, you know. So
we've got to ideally get the message across that we're cancelling that distress or urgency
procedure that we've started,
rather than we're just buggering off and leaving you to it. Yeah, as far as we can tell, as far as we're concerned, whatever the
So
problem.
they've all drowned now. They've all just,
Yeah, that's it. They're all drowned. I can't see them anymore.
there's
So
no point.
Their heads just got harder.
yeah, so and I think in one of the examples, or this example, in a moment we're going to get, let's say, when the klaxon sounds or whatever the indication is, because we've got to remember you're just sitting in a room doing this with a headset on and possibly a panel in front of you with some lights and buttons on it. That's it. And somewhere along the lines, there's a notification that you've got a problem, and for instance, you might have a rough running engine. So who wants to have a go at, we're in an aircraft with a rough running engine?
It's not like I've ever been in an aircraft with a rough running engine, is it, Paul?
Not rough running. You haven't had rough running, have you?
Oh, Foxtrot Papa Echo Hotel. I seem to have a problem with my alternator lights come on. Not sure if it's going to go out or not.
Yeah. No, that's not rough running engine. So let's imagine you're flying along and it is running rough. The engine is running rough, misfiring, vibrating. What sort of call we're going to make?
Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. This is helicopter Golf Foxtrot Papa Hotel with a rough running engine. Current location just north of Northwick Reservoir. I'm just trying to work out what's going wrong, so you can probably hear the panic in my voice now.
So what other information we've got to get out?
Location, height.
Intention. What are we intending to do?
Yeah, what are you going to do about the problem?
Land in the nearest airfield or field.
Field, I would go to.
And someone on
rotation into nearest field.
If possible, give them that direction so they know where you are heading for, if possible, isn't it? But yeah,
yeah, if you can.
If you can. Yeah. All right. So yes, in this example, of course, it is definitely a mayday.
Absolutely. And one thing, like I say, that we would always want to know how many people on board, because that's the first question we're going to get from the emergency services is how many people are they looking for. So, like I say, the who, what, where, and how many are the really important bits to get over.
Good.
And then I would come back. I've forgotten what our call sign is now, but it will be Golf Hotel India Zulu Lockstead Radar Roger Mayday. And I might just sort of practically, if you hear this going on while you're flying around, the controller might impose radio silence on everyone else so that the person in trouble does not have to listen to all the chatter. So you might hear something like, all stations, Lockstead Radar, stop transmitting Mayday. And what we do in such cases is I would call Amanda back to open another console next to me. It would be COVID safe because we would wipe it down with tissues and things. Absolutely. Anyway, and then I would keep the emergency traffic with me, and you would hear something like Lockstead Radar, all stations, or sort of, Mayday, Golf, blah, blah, blah. All other stations contact Amanda on a different frequency. So we would separate everyone off like that. And I being in the lucky hot seat at the time, would retain the emergency, and Amanda would cope with everything else that we'll now all try and call her at once.
And then, of course, in the RT test, the last thing we want to do is suddenly have to land the aircraft, and oh dear, that's the finish of the test. So along the lines of suddenly your engine is running fine, it's all okay again. And
well, on the software I use, I've got some little warning lights at the bottom. So I'll click it on and it says eng or something. So that's meant to be your engine failure. And when the light goes off, miraculously your engine power is restored and you don't want to make a precautionary landing. No, you just want to carry on with whatever you were planning to do in the first place. And in the brief, I say to people, we're not going to make any decisions about airmanship because that's not a really right thing to do, is it? But having just recovered from a rough running engine, I'll just plod on with what I was going
carry on flying. Yeah,
no, we'd probably in reality be thinking about a precautionary landing somewhere sensible.
But for the purpose of the oral exam, we must make sure we now cancel once again that Mayday, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And from the grounds point of view, you know, it's nice to know. So I personally, Amanda might do, I would like to hear something like cancel Mayday, engines restarted. I'm diverting to Norton, which to me seems to be the closest airfield.
Yeah.
But for the RT exam, cancel Mayday, engine restarted, continuing to Whitefleet. You know, so what's happened now, it's all better, and what you intend to do about that.
Cool. All right, so what's next on the what wonderful things are next on the Navex? So we're heading down.
What should we do now?
Now we're at 2,500 feet. Do we need to call London terminal manoeuvring area at all? Anybody? Radio silence. No. So at the moment, of course, we're 2,500. So there's nothing to be done with this. This is just for make it look like a map, as far as I can tell. There's nothing really to be involved in that, is there?
Is there anything to ensure that you have or have set once you cross that red line? And working out of Elstree, it won't affect you because it kind of happens automatically, so you may not have thought about it.
We've had to request
your transponder. You need your transponder working?
No, not at the moment.
To say that you're entering the zone, you're entering London TMA?
Well, we're actually sort of below, that's an area, so we're actually below that. But we
Is there
need
a
to
listening squawk you'll set, or?
There might be. They're very good. Always use those. So I'm thinking more sort of operationally, we need to make sure that we're actually using a QNH of an airfield under the TMA. So that might mean listening into an ATIS somewhere, or tuning into an RT frequency just to make sure you've got the, don't necessarily have to speak to anyone, but you could hear the QNHs that's being given out.
Cool.
That's
Okay.
a good thing to do, because I've had traffic potentially infringe the Stansted CTA above 1,500 feet because they've been talking to flight information. They've had the Chatham set, and depending on, I'm going to use millibars because I can, depending on the millibar difference, the pressure difference, it can actually show if they're actually inside controlled hectopascals. It can actually show if they're actually inside controlled airspace, because depending on the difference, they're not inside controlled airspace, but because the QNH set is showing them in my airspace, so therefore I then have to take avoiding action against unknown traffic. So it is always better to have a local airfield QNH set.
Now, just regarding
because.
Sorry, Helena.
Sorry. No, I was just going to say, because where Elstree is, you are always under the TMA. So, you know, it kind of happens automatically. But if you were coming back in from the north and you've got this upside down wedding cake affair happening as you get closer and closer to London, do make sure you call sort of Luton or Stansted to get their QNH, or listen in with a listening squawk, that you get the QNH so that you're on a correct pressure setting underneath the TMA.
Amanda, did you suggest we're going back to millibars then, or something? Or
No, that's wishful thinking on my part.
No.
It is. I can use it because I'm not on the RT and I'm not being assessed, and no one's going to pull the tapes on me.
Ah, I see.
So, no, I wish it will ever be hectopascals.
It's hectopascals.
Amanda said millibars on my.
I know, yeah, as I was just thinking.
I have to remember the next time you do my next RT sample, yeah.
Okay.
I had to do an RT sample for Amanda, and it was brilliant because she was so busy and there was weather avoidance and everything, and she did it all in such a splendidly cheerful way. I thought I'd have been completely losing the plot by this stage. Getting really
Stereo problem kicked in at that point. It's like a duck.
Yeah,
It sounded like it's very calm on the top, but yeah, I remember that day.
No, it was very good. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, digress.
That's right. So, does anybody want to tell me what is maybe different, or what this funny toilet seat thing is here?
That's a Mexican courier.
Military aerodrome.
Yeah, that's basically it. Yeah, that's right. So what are we going to do? Because our route, Gerhard, look, we want to fly through there. So what are we going to do with this one then?
Avoid at all costs.
No, we don't need to.
Well, we do the same deal. I mean, when we were talking about getting the local QNH of an airfield, my response was, well, can we not phone Norton, Mats, and Norton and find. So
yeah, they'll be under the TMA. Yeah, it was more a sort of real world thing, sort of coming back from the north towards London. I was thinking of.
So Gerhard, if we want to fly through this
zone transit again,
but there might be more specific wording than zone transit. I mean,
max penetration. A max penetration.
Good, a max penetration. Now, why did anybody? Hopefully, Helena or Amanda might know the answers. Why call it a max penetration? Why not a zone transit?
A military.
Yeah,
That have to be different.
I do believe it's just a military term, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. How far out? And this is the only one in the civvy world. All we ask is you give us a bit of notice. You don't sort of pitch up on the zone boundary and say, I want to transit. You know, give us a bit of time to get the details, get things organised. But the military would like you to call a certain distance from.
Was it 5 nautical miles?
Say that again, please.
5 nautical miles.
5 does come into it.
I thought it was 10 nautical miles or 5 minutes.
5 minutes, I have.
Right.
Any advance on 10 miles?
15.
Yes.
15.
From where? From
the centre.
It's actually from the zone boundary. And how wide is a map?
5 nautical miles.
So they want you to call 20 miles from the airfield itself.
Right.
So, or 5 minutes flying time, whichever is the sooner. I think I was very bored one day and I worked out that 80 knots is the sort of division. Was it 80 or 90? I can't even remember now. So if you're faster than that, it's the 5 minutes.
That's it. So you've got to get that call in quite early on. But yeah, it's the terminology would be a max penetration. How strict would you be, Helena, on that? So if Gerhard has said that he requested a zone transit through the Norton Mats?
It wouldn't be a fail item. It's something I would mention. Look, they like you to say, the military like you to say request max penetration in the first call. So your initial call to them would be Norton Zone, Golf Hotel India, Zulu, request max penetration. That's what they would like in an ideal world. And as I say, if you didn't do it on the test, they might say, oh, don't forget when you're talking to a MATS, that's what they like. So it's not the thing.
And how would they respond then?
They go for the pass your details first. Looking for your aircraft call sign type.
Same spiel as before, and then this time it's not zone transferred. It's called a MATS penetration.
MATS penetration, yeah. So go through all your flight detail routines, where you come from, where you're going to, where you are now, level, what you want, which again might be just repeating MATS penetration. What the strange thing that they will do to you is they want you to go through the maps on the QFE.
Yeah.
So ready to again, who knows why? They're military, they want to. And also a MAT isn't actually controlled airspace.
No.
So theoretically,
they sure have the hardware to enforce any control they want, man.
It's uncontrolled air. So the ATZ in the middle has rules about it, but the MATS itself, I think the wording in the AIP is, although it doesn't have the status of needing a clearance, it is strongly recommended, sort of due to the nature of the activities that may be going on in there, fast jets and whiz bangs, I don't know what they do. It's strongly recommended that you do speak to them on the way past. So you would be given, it's not a formal clearance, but the controller would come back and say, cross the MATS, height, because it's on the QFE, height 2,000 feet, QFE 9 or 8 hectopascals.
Okay.
Report, and the way I run it in the test is I say report entering and leaving the mats, because they don't tend to monitor the zone with radar, so it's done on position reports. So if I said to you, transit the mats, height, how can I phrase it? What I'm trying to think what Lakenheath used to say to transit the mats, remain outside of the ATZ.
That's it.
I've had that before. Yeah. So how would you achieve that?
As I understand that, well, first I repeat that back, but then as I understand that is not to overfly or fly, what's the word, overhead over the runway in that sort of central area. I'd have to go around that, correct?
Sort of. What's the vertical extent of a mat? All above aerodrome.
2,000 feet for normal civilian aerodrome. Is it just double that? Is it 5,000?
No,
4,500?
you're along the right lines. It is higher. It's 3.
3.
So
Okay.
you've got 1,000 feet over the top, where you would be complying with remain outside of the ATZ.
Yeah,
if
right.
you were 2,100
and we're under the TMA of 4,500, so
correct. So that's not a
we have enough room to. Okay, so we'll still carry on our route, but we'll just pop right over them. Okay.
absolutely, yeah. So you can either avoid it sort of laterally or.
Yeah, technically, we didn't even have to make that call if we were already above that. But it's the way I understand, or probably will play this, is it's courtesy just to inform them, hey, this is what we want to do, our intention.
Yeah, I think that what the AIP says is good advice. You've no idea of the nature of the activities going on in there. There could be fast jets, training stuff. Who knows?
Might be your rocket
always
day or something.
Yes.
And of course,
hopefully not.
something like the RT oral exam. They want you to have a go. They want to see that you understand the procedure of calling a mats, rather than thinking, actually, you know what, I'm just going to divert around here.
I'm just going to go, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It's about that chance to practice and demonstrate.
Yeah, I've had people trying to divert. We've got ways of making the test sort of go for the whole duration. Yeah. No shortcuts.
So
we make you fly this scenic route around. There's no, I'm going direct, so you're here.
Because again, during your PPL training, the chance of you actually penetrating a mats is unlikely unless you've gone on a NAVEX somewhere, or we've taken you specifically out towards Benson maybe to make you fly through. But it's, as you can hear, it's almost identical to doing a zone transit, isn't it? In most respects, the procedure is pretty much the same.
Yes, yeah. And again, in the real world, I don't think anyone's going to get too upset if you don't say request a map penetration and you just say I want to transit the zone.
Yeah.
It's,
okay, so I think roughly speaking, our intention is to land at Yfleet. So of course, there's a bit of a request frequency change. We go on to Yfleet, we give them a quick call, and I'm just trying to remember how this normally pans out. I think it's weather, isn't it?
I don't know actually.
I think when you call Yfleet, for instance, they say that the weather's really bad there. There might be fog now or something, and of course you can't land. So state your intentions. So what does somebody tell me? What does it mean if you hear the words from an air traffic controller like Helena or Amanda? State your intentions.
What a good story.
Anybody, what do you reckon? State your intentions.
I've got no idea.
Go on, Sam, give it a go.
But is it like you got to say what you got to do, like where you're going to move, what direction?
Not bad, actually. Yeah. All they're saying is,
what do you want to do? Yeah, it's just a fancy way of saying, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
I did get. There was a famous story. Someone's asked to report their intentions, and the pilot comes back with, "Well, I'm hour building at the moment, but I'm going to go commercial, and and then I want to get a job with an air like that." But no.
Flying now, but I've always wanted to be a dancer.
Yeah.
thing in your life. Sorry.
Brilliant. I'm going to remember that one.
Brilliant. Yeah, yeah. So, so yes, it, you know, what are you intending to do next, basically?
That's it. So in this example, we could say, in that case, I think I'll divert to Dunham.
That's it.
And off we go.
I'm
just reading the exam. Just reading the notes that go with this, and they're saying
yes,
that
I'm just having a look
potentially you're on final approach. There's something blocking the runway. You go around, and of course you've got to divert. Off you go.
That's the one I use, where you get into the circuit and the aircraft ahead, the gear collapses. It's difficult with helicopter people because you'll just go and say, well, I'm going to go and land on the grass over there.
Yeah.
So you guys tend to get the bad weather, but with people who have to use the runway, it's often a disabled aircraft. So we're not going to move that anytime soon. Is kind of the gist of it.
That's it. That's why I thought I'll opt for the weather because I was saying
it works.
There's a nice pub here with a big field, so we're just going to go and land next to the pub.
Yes. The question: would you say Gulf Echo ahead? Yeah. If you've been told the weather is below your limits at Y Fleet, so Roger, Gulf Echo Hotel is diverting to Dunham, and they'll probably say, "Go on then, free call 119.925."
All right. So who wants to have a go at this unplanned diversion into Dunham, which appears to be inside the London control zone as well, the CTR?
Almost like Denham, isn't it?
It's almost like Denham. It's a spitting image of Denham. Yeah. Which we fly to, and we tend to where possible, we take all of our students to Denham one way or another. So they've had a go at diverting to a nearby aerodrome that's in the Heathrow zone, and it's very scary. And yeah, so actually they realise it's not that bad, and it's quite all right.
And almost landing at the Crossrail sort of project.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah, Gerhard identified the airfield, which is actually
that's right there. It's a big airfield. Nope.
No, that's the new HS2 terminal being built.
Brilliant.
Oh. All right. So who's going to have a go at this diversion then? This unplanned diversion because of weather. I can't see everybody, otherwise I could pick on somebody on the screen.
Got to change your view there, Paul. There's a button you can change. See everyone.
I'm just having a quick flick through now. We got. How about Uri? Do you want to have a go?
Yeah, that's wonderful. But I wanted to have a short question before.
Okay.
Can you at this stage ask, because if there is a bad weather and I just plan to fly to Y Fleet, can I ask for advice? What is the nearest, especially in case of plane, where to go? Because I just kind of
yeah. What would you ask me for?
Gulf Echo Hotel. What is the nearest airport with good landing or with good weather?
Okay. I probably will be able.
You can say Dunham or whatever, but there might be a different options, northwest, east, south, or whatever.
Yeah. I would, if you said to me, what's the weather for Dunham, Norton, and somewhere else, sort of off to the northeast, say it's off our map at the moment. But I would send a runner to go and phone around these places and copy down the METARs or the weather reports and relay that to you when I have the information.
Mm-hmm. And the reason Uri said that you can base your information on it, you can't expect the air traffic controller to make a decision about how you're going to fly that aircraft, for instance.
Sure.
In case they, they're not there.
I don't know,
But I can say like Gulf Echo Hotel, fuel for 60 minutes. What is the any airport with a good weather?
Oh.
Yeah, you could. You're sort of making my toes sort of curl a bit, and probably Nat's lawyers are.
You're asking.
I would say just ask for the weather for some relevant aerodromes that you think. I know you're diverting away from Y Fleet, so and I obviously know there's sort of some local aerodromes. I might even have some of the information already to hand. So, you know, if you say request the weather for, I think we'd feel more comfortable if you just said, can I have the weather for Denham, Norton and Eastburg or whatever it's called? And then we can go and get those for you. And then you can decide from that information which one is appropriate to divert to.
Okay, so so coming to our diversion. So you informed me that there is a bad weather. So Golf Echo Hotel changing towards Denham.
Yeah, Golf Echo Hotel.
Golf Echo.
Yeah, Golf Echo Hotel. My service terminates. Pre-call Dunham 119.925.
Yeah, I wish I remember all the numbers. But the
I'm just reading it off of what, you know, is it
119.295 to 925, changing towards Denham Golf Echo Hotel.
All right, yeah, not too bad. Okay, right, who else? Let me have a quick flick through my screens. Who else have we got? Who wants to have a go at the next bit? Let me pick on James Berry.
Just started my dinner. Knew
Okay.
that was gonna happen. What would you like me to do, Paul? What am I diverting? Am I?
Yeah, so you're between Wyfleet and Oak Cross VRP. You're diverted away from Wyfleet. Your intention is to go to Dunham on a weather diversion. You've just changed frequency onto Dunham 119.925. What are you going to say to them? They can be Dunham information.
Dunham radio. It's a radio, Dunham, isn't it?
Yeah, just do radio. Yeah, say Dunham radio. That'll do.
Dunham radio. What's it called? Wyfleet. Unplanned diversion from Wyfleet. Request approach and land. Currently approaching Oak Cross VRP. Request airfield information. That would be my guess.
Yeah, absolutely. You could just say request join. Keep your RT down, and that's my trigger to say, okay, it's surface winds 260 degrees at 8 knots, runway 26, and the QNH 1007, QFE 1001.
Would you want the whole call from me, knowing who I am and all the information? Because of course you don't have that information yet.
Sorry, yeah, probably I would, yeah. You know, so it will be a pass your message first. Sorry, I sort of skipped ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, so pass your message, say who you are, where you're coming from. You could say you're diverting, you know, from Wyfleet, but to be honest, what you've done before is a little bit meaning that in a caring
cowboy, my radio.
Yeah.
Do you
so
have to
really
say anything to London Control? Or the fact that you're talking to Dunham?
Looking at how it's been drawn, I'm sort of treating it like it's Denham, and so they've got their local flying area. But how it's drawn on the map there, yes, I would suggest you would need a zone entry from, well, Heathrow Special at that case.
I was thinking about it being Denham, and knowing from what's it called, Maple Cross, and knowing that.
There might be an arrangement, you know, that you can just enter low level, a bit like Fair Oaks have. Their sort of ATZ has the sort of wings to it that they can nip in and out without talking to anyone as part of their local flying arrangements. But yes, I minimised it. So yeah, the way it's drawn, you would have to call special for an ATC clearance just to fly that couple of miles towards the ATZ.
Would Wylet then give you an indication that you'd have to do that and not give you the frequency for Dunham?
Sorry, say that again.
Well, you got diverted from Whitelet and you said change
Yeah.
frequency to Dunham, but would you, in that case, they tell you to change frequency to London Control instead?
Yes, they would. Yeah, which kind of implies that it's sort of local practice to just sneak in through that bit. But it depends how Paul wants to run it. It's his test.
Well, we've done phone translate. Yeah, so really all we're interested in is just that call to say that we're coming in, haven't we? Making radio.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we've made it radio, just expect to hear the wind a lot and a lot of Roger to everything you say. They can't really do very much else. You kind of tell them that, you know, joining for runway 26, Roger, wind is. And when it comes to where you're going to, the air ground guys can't give any instructions, so you'll hear things like parking is available over there, not telling you to park there. They have to, it's actually harder than just telling people what to do, what the air ground people have to try and linguistically juggle.
Yeah, trying to get somebody to park somewhere, but without actually telling them to park.
Without telling them to park somewhere. Yes.
How to get the information across. So one of the things that crops up quite a lot also is, do you need to, if you're talking to a radio or an information aerodrome, do you need to request a join?
Request what, sorry?
You need to request a join to that airfield, because if you're requesting, it implies you're going to get instructions.
Sort of under the rules which govern moving in an aerodrome traffic zone, that you have to cause notice of your intention to do so to the person in charge of it, then yes, you do have to sort of notify them that you're going to enter. And not in an air traffic context, so you're not getting a clearance, but there is a rule of the air that says if you're going to move on the ground or in the air around an aerodrome, you must notify either the air traffic control unit or get the information from the, oh God, this is really, really painful dragging this out. Get the information from the FISO or the air ground operator or the aerodrome authority to enable this to be done safely.
Right, but what about the word request though? That's the. Or is it more a case of stating?
Yeah, I guess they're in a way they're granting you approval to use their facilities, as it were. You know, it's and it's kind of courtesy rather than just I'm coming in, which you know.
So
I think the convention would be that you are having to obtain information, as I say, under rule whatever it is, that to actually enter their little world. So I think it's polite to request it.
So one of the things that crops up a lot in the real world and the differences of flying in and out of Elstree to opposed to other places, we hear this quite a lot. You'll hear aircraft saying that they're at South Mims, for instance, requesting joining instructions, and it's one of those sort of things you think, oh, it's because you're not going to get instructions.
No.
Grey area, and then it starts. Often, then I'll talk to the person, sort of say, look, do you realise that they can't give you instructions? What they're giving you is information for you to then use to conduct the safe flight.
And I think that's one reason why the phraseology is just request join. Because that triggers people, you know, it saves all that sort of grey area over there, and the person on the ground is able to give you as much as they are able.
Yeah.
So the only difference being with the FISOs, you'll be told where the traffic is in kind of real time, but the air ground people can only rely on when things last reported. So it might be a little bit historic.
We tend to encourage the students to get this understanding in the head that they're not going to give you instructions. Why don't you request joining information that you can then use to make a decision on how you would like to. They can then sort of say, well, this is how I'd like to come in. And that's one of the ways that we've sort of been teaching.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Realise that it's not
airfield information or
not a fixed instruction. I mean, you take those of you that know Elstree, there's nothing stopping us helicopters coming in either Alpha or Bravo, whether it's into wind or out of wind or against the flow of traffic. We can come in either way, and go out either way. Now, we normally would teach, of course, coming in the direction that puts you into wind and in the flow of traffic, so you're not going against the flow. There's nothing that actually stops you. So if you were at South Mims and you requested joining information, and they said joining report Alpha, you might think, well, that's the long way round. And on a southerly wind, you might as well just come in via Bravo. It makes no difference as far as the wind's concerned, and therefore we can do that. Whereas if you requested joining instructions and they said come in via Alpha, you might think, no, that's an instruction to actually comply with and do. And that's one of the battles that I have as an instructor, to try and make sure people realise there's a difference between air traffic control and flight information service.
So it really is just that in the air information only with a flight information service. They can give instructions on the ground and certain parts of the manoeuvring area. So, you know, it's okay to request taxi. That's appropriate. But in the air, it will just be information, and all the decisions as to what to do with that or about that information, it is pilots.
And that's, I say, as an instructor, that's one of the toughest things I find getting across with the RT procedures of a air, ground or a flight information service, understanding that you're not under control, and you're making all the decisions really just using the information provided to you.
I mean, we're a bit odd here in having this sort of halfway house of the FISOs. I don't think many other places do it. It's either air traffic control or radio, you know, but we've got this weird hybrid.
Yeah, that's right. And one other thing I wanted to ask about, or in front of everybody, Helena, is listening squawks. You see, we don't. So just stop sharing that second, so I can see everybody. That's better. They are a really good thing. We don't tend to use them. One of the things we tend to encourage is always try and be talking to somebody rather than nobody at all, which is never a good idea. So what's the basis behind, or Amanda, if you want to take, you can take the floor from her if you wish, or I don't mind.
Oh yeah, I'll have a look.
I mean, if I'm flying near Luton and I don't particularly need to talk to them, I can't hear Amanda's voice on the radio, or Helena, so I think, well, I won't bother them. They sound quite busy, but I'm getting quite close to their control zone. Yep. I'll put on a listening squawk and dial in that frequency. So what on earth have I done?
I can see that you're listening out, and if you're getting quite close to my zone, it's happened before quite a lot, especially on Luton.
Not with me, no.
No, but you can see something heading towards your airspace. You think, okay, listening squawk, not about you know that they're within reach, and if it looks like they're getting a little bit close, I can always do a blind transmission, traffic squawking 7013 in the vicinity of wherever, this altitude on a listening squawk. Are you with me? Or if they've got mode to Sierra, I can click on it, see if the call sign comes up, do a blind transmission to that. Are you on my frequency? A firm. You're getting quite close to the edge of the Luton zone. Might give them a squawk, or just let them know where I think they are. And they'll go, yeah, we're about to turn southbound. So traffic can turn away. It can prevent an infringement. So you know they're listening, you know where they are. It's just a matter of double checking altitude, but it has saved a lot of paperwork. I'm sure Helena will agree. When things get close, especially if things are going at speed, you see the speed of some of the things going in and out of North Weald. It's nice to be able to have that heads up that people are listening out. And even sometimes just as a courtesy call, if they're heading towards a gaggle of traffic, I might do that, just be advised, high intensity traffic area ahead of you or multiple contacts seen. But yeah, it saves you having to call me call you back, get all your information. I know you're there, I know you're listening. If you get a little bit close, I go, get a little bit closer. Yeah, sorry.
Now
yeah, like Amanda says, it's a great way. Zone infringements are a real pain. I don't know if I've got that video that Nat's made about the infringement, because we have to break off traffic and resequence. We could lose separation, which means we get pulled out while the initial investigation goes on. So it's quite an anxious time for the controller involved. And as Amanda says, it's reassuring to know that we can get in touch with this person, you know, say traffic north of St Albans, the Luton zone is 2 miles ahead of you, suggest you turn east or west, you know. And sometimes the guy comes back and says, oh yeah, I was going to, which is fine. And sometimes I go, oh, thank you. And, you know, so it's, but it's the reassurance of knowing that if we need to speak to someone, we can. Also, it sort of helps from a pilot's point of view, it helps with situational awareness. You've got some idea of what's going on around you, even if you're not contributing to that of other pilots.
I'm just going to state the obvious. Hopefully everybody's going, yes, of course we knew that. If you're going to use a listening code like 0013 flying close to Luton, you must make sure you're on their frequency. So in case they do need to contact you. It was a London information often crops up. You see the amazement of the student because I tell them, oh, and the score could be 1177. They're like, how do you know? Well, same for everybody, because they haven't got you on radar. But anybody that has a radar and sees your squawking 1177 tells them, therefore, you're on London information. So if they needed to get hold of you, they can talk to London Info and say, wait, you've got an aircraft that's heading straight for.
It actually converts to fizz now, so we don't even see the numbers. We just see that aircraft is working London information.
Oh, that's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
The thing is, with traffic working London information, if I see a London information squawk heading towards my airspace, I ring London information. I cannot ask them to pass an instruction to that aircraft to turn it away.
Oh.
They cannot give an instruction. London information.
They're not licensed to.
No. London information have to give me the aircraft, by which point it could be in my airspace.
Yes.
I've now taken avoiding action. Golf Barbecue Tea Kettle has now called me, and by which point you've scattered traffic. So sometimes if you are going to be close to any of the London zones, either call one of them or listen out. Again, because flight information can't pass on any instruction from any radar unit, as Helena said, they're not licensed to. They have to speak to us. We have to identify them and then go in with...
Presumably they can give the pilot the advice that they are heading straight for controlled airspace, but as you say, no instruction. But presumably they can make them aware of what they're heading for.
I don't know how that one... That information, I would have thought, don't hold me to that. But if it's that critical, it's going to be contact Essex radar.
Yeah, it's a fairly recent thing, isn't it? Because we used to be able to say to them, get that to turn north, and you know they would relay that, but they can't do it now.
That's interesting, isn't it? I'll share what we're talking about here. Now they call it frequency monitoring codes and the areas. This is kind of what we're talking about. And if we zoom in, for instance,
map.
I can zoom in. Come on, computer.
Because it used to be Stansted and Luton used to share the squawk of 0013. So
we didn't know which frequency it was, did we?
Everybody did line transmission. Yeah.
So you can see all these areas around. They've got their all unique listening squawk codes that we can dial up just to show that we are listening on that frequency.
If you go a little bit further north, I was going to ask you a question. I'm not sure if it's on this one. Ooh. No, you haven't. As the military stations are also involved as well, but they tend to have on the other map. They have a little asterisk next to them, which tells you that there are no wars at the weekend. So this is sort of how it would look at the weekend, but that sort of bit between Newcastle and Doncaster, there's actually a couple of military stations that during the week will also provide... Sorry, I'm talking about something completely different. I'm an idiot. Sorry. Yes. Disregard.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And this is February 2019. So I'm not aware of any changes, but probably need to update it. But it's only to give an example anyway. Cool.
But no, they've been really good at preventing people getting into trouble, which is a good thing.
Because we never like to file on anybody. It's the one thing you don't want to do. If you can prevent it, even if it's by a whisker and they turn away, they haven't entered controlled airspace, no infringement, no loss of separation.
Yeah.
everyone's happy.
I hope that's given everybody that's joined a bit of an idea of what might be involved in your radio oral test. There's lots more to tell you, as always there is, and we can never get it all done in 2 hours in one evening. But it just gives you a bit of an idea of what you're going to be not up against, but what you're going to do. And hopefully, like Helena said, you'll come out at the end enjoying it and have learned a couple of new things and hints and tips and what's good and what wasn't.
I tried to sort of treat it like it's a bit more than a tick in a box. Hopefully you get something useful from it, a chance to practice a few more unusual bits of RT, and hopefully it's not just I've got to pass this thing here. A bit more use going forward.
Because it's about one of the only times you'll ever hopefully squeeze a trigger and say to an air traffic controller, "Mayday, mayday, mayday."
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully, yeah. That's rude.
It's nice.
Goosebumps, even though it's only a practice. It's always the things you never want to hear.
It's the things you don't want to hear, isn't it? Yeah, indeed.
Well, I asked Paul. It came up, and I must admit, I've not really used it since my RT test. Special VFR clearances.
Yeah.
Especially because when I had my diversion with deteriorating weather, I had to request special VFR, and the controller isn't allowed to offer it until you ask for it. But they usually hint. I wonder if we get what.
We'll tell you what the weather. Yeah, it will go on the weather at the main aerodrome within controlled airspace, because special VFR only happens in a control zone. Oh God, this is going to be difficult because the rules are changing on the 20th.
Yeah.
And I'm not quite.
Hey, Elena, don't.
What we would do inside the control zone, the choice of flight rules is up to the pilot. So I will tell you what the weather is if it's less than 5 kilometres, and say and ask you to decide. So basically saying, James, do you want a VFR or a special VFR clearance? So I say the visibility at Luton is 4,000 metres in mist. What flight rules do you require? And I would expect you to decide special VFR, depending on what you can see out the window. And I think we'll leave it before we, rather than going through the A to Z, because to be perfectly honest, what has been written at work is conflicting information, and I haven't found anyone to rant at and say you muffed that up. But anyway.
Thank you.
But the general gist, as you know, is for those that aren't quite certain, if the weather's not quite nice and suitable for just standard VFR flight through a control zone, we can request special VFR, which means we'll accept the fact the weather's dropped a little bit, but we're under these well, not exactly different rules, but it's about making sure you can maintain separation, isn't it, Helena and Amanda? We're going to
have to separate special VFR from IFR.
Yeah.
So that's where we now have to build in the 3 miles, 1,000 feet. So that's where it really starts to get messy.
But
the difference
more with the controller, aren't you, with special VFR? There are less aircraft allowed to be in the area, is my understanding of it.
Well, yeah, because Amanda said it doesn't really make too much difference to us as pilots. We're still navigating by reference to the ground and staying clear of obstacles, flying within the limits of our license and all that good stuff. But from the controller's point of view, whereas before I could just go, there's a 737, mind it, and that's my job done, I've now got to ensure that you get no closer than 3 miles or 1,000 feet to that traffic. So routes and levels that we give are going to be more restrictive. So whereas before I maybe say, oh, not above 2,000 feet. Now I'm saying, which is why it used to be 1,000 feet between Burnham and Ascot underneath the Heathrow approach, because it was a Class A zone and we had to separate everything. So it was 1,000 feet. And now it's a Class D zone and you can be VFR if the weather's suitable. You're allowed to be that little bit higher. So our routings and levels are going to be more restrictive to a special VFR aircraft because we have to provide separation. But for the pilot, as long as you can see where you're going, it doesn't, and you've got down to 800 meters. Is that the VFR limit for helicopters, if I remember?
Yeah.
So as long as you can still see where you're going, it shouldn't really make too much difference to you.
And so, James, therefore, if you kind of get denied entry under just a VFR, state your intentions is what we used to hear. It's that classic of saying all you got to do is request a special VFR and we'll probably let you in. Therefore, as a net. Is that what kind of what you're asking?
With Luton, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
Yeah, no, what I was going to say, with Luton, if you're south of Hyde and north of Offaly in the line, you are deemed separated from our arrivals. So on a special VFR transit, we might ask you to hold in the lane, south or north of those points, and we can carry on until there's a gap. Obviously, at the moment, there are lots of gaps, there's not a problem. But we can, that is what is called deemed separated. Someone has assessed it and said it is safe to do that and carry on landing and departing traffic at Luton in between. So that's something else you might come across particular to Luton.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Helena. Thank you, Amanda, for your time, and thank you for everybody joining us.
Yes, thank you for listening to us going on.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you all.
Right, see you all, and
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Paul.
Have a good night, everyone.
Yeah, good luck, everybody.